Hello, and welcome to Senior Code Review Buddy. My name is Chris, and today I'm going to talk about code reviews and how I think you can extract the most out of them as a reviewer or author. Other than some of my early internships, every place I've worked has used code reviews. The exact format has varied from place to place. Things like how many reviewers are needed and who can be a reviewer are some of the things that can vary from company to company and even repo to repo. But the basics of it are the same. Someone writes code, and then they need approval from other people before they can merge it or land it. I'm not going to talk about what the best format for this process is, as I think there's a lot of context to consider here. Code written for spacecraft probably should have a different code review process than code for a video game. Instead, I'm going to talk about how you can extract the most value from a code review, regardless of the framework of the process. I think the main ways a code review generates value is by just having a second set of eyes look at the code, finding bugs, improving code quality, and knowledge transfer. Let's go into each of these in more detail. All right, since the whole code review process is about having another person look at the code, what exactly do I mean by having a second set of eyes look at it? I think there are two surprisingly simple advantages of having another person look over your code. First, this other person might notice a silly mistake you miss. Second, you know another person is going to look at your code. So what exactly do I mean by silly mistake? I mean just that, silly mistake. When you've been working on the same code for a while, or in a rush to get a fix out, you can do silly things. I've personally left in debug statements like print 17 exclamation marks that I was using to help figure out something locally. I've accidentally put gibberish letters into a comment, usually because I thought I was typing somewhere else. Is this stuff that I should have caught before sending the code out for review? Absolutely. And I have caught these issues. But sometimes they slip through because we are human and mistakes do happen. Having another person take a look helps to catch these silly things. But it does require the reviewer to actually look at all of your code, which I'm hoping you do when you're reviewing someone's code. Do I think catching these silly mistakes is the most important part of a code review? No, but I think it helps. I also talked about there being value in me knowing that someone else is going to look at my code. And by this, I do mean that when I know someone else is going to look at my code, I probably think a bit more about things like variable names, comments, or how best to solve the problem. Or I'll write a test that I think is important, but feels a little too frustrating to make me normally want to do it. If I get frustrated with something, and I know I have to show my work to someone, I'm more likely to figure it out, as opposed to sort of hacking a solution for it that works in a very specific case, but I'm not actually really happy with. Now, ideally, I shouldn't need this motivation. I should always do the best I can. But I'm human. I can get frustrated, and I can be tempted to take a shortcut. But when I know I need to show my code to someone, that temptation decreases. I think that finding bugs is something that is often viewed as the top priority of code reviews. And while I do think it's helpful to find bugs when reviewing code, I don't think it's often approached the right way. I've seen people go through all the code, carefully examining each line and figuring out what it means and how everything interacts. And sometimes they find legit bugs. And sometimes they don't because there are no bugs. And other times they just miss the bugs. In any case, this is a very time-consuming and challenging process. And the larger the code review gets, the more time-consuming and challenging this is. Now, this isn't to say you shouldn't do this at all, but you might want to scope it to certain areas of the code, places that seem to have a lot of complexity or that you think there might be a problem in. A better way, I think, you can help find bugs in a code review is not by looking at all the production code, but by looking at the tests. And if there aren't any tests with the change, I'd say that's usually a sign that you should comment on that and get tests added. Generally speaking, it should be easier to look at tests to verify that the code is doing what it's supposed to do. If you have a function that deletes a file, you can look at the tests to confirm that there are tests that verify the file exists, call a function to delete it, and confirm the file is deleted afterwards. And then you can see if you have good test coverage for all the different conditions you can think of. What happens if you try and delete a file that doesn't exist? or a file that you have read access to but not write access. And by finding cases that aren't being tested, you can potentially expose a bug. And since the code author will be addressing it by writing a test, if there was a bug, that test will make it clear when it's fixed. And if it wasn't a bug, well, that's fine too. The test is adding extra documentation to make it clear to future readers that the code works in that condition. At this point, we haven't so much found a bug as helped to improve the code quality with the wonderful side effect of potentially finding and fixing bugs. So let's talk more about the impact code reviews have on improving code quality. In my opinion, these last 2 points, improving code quality and knowledge transfer, are the main reasons I love code reviews. And I believe that when harnessed correctly, these generate a huge amount of value. I'm going to talk about them together because I believe they are fairly intertwined in how they work in practice. I personally think that the best way as a reviewer to perform a code review is to start by reading through the code. As you do this, you start to gain some knowledge of the code. And while this does count as knowledge transfer, I think it's the most basic knowledge transfer in the process. When going through the code, you should leave a comment anytime something seems unclear to you, seems off, or seems wrong. The purpose of these comments should generally be to start a discussion. They can be brief discussions, 2 comments total, but they shouldn't just be comments of the form, do X. If you leave a comment, do X, the code author will probably do it, and they might not know why. So while you are hopefully improving the code quality there, you aren't engaging in any knowledge transfer. The person might not know why you want them to do X, and it's likely that if you have another review from them in the future, they might make the same mistake and not do X when they should because they didn't know. So instead of a comment like do X, have something like do X to ensure we don't overload the server, do X to ensure this runs on Mac and Windows, do X instead of Y here because X is more efficient, or even do X because it's in the style guide. Now, I don't think all of your comments should be directly telling the author what to do. Sometimes there's just some code that you don't understand. So maybe you should say, I'm having trouble understanding this section. Could you explain what's going on? Now, jumping over to the code author's side, we've got all of these wonderful comments. Each one of these comments is a chance to perform knowledge sharing, improve the code, or both. First off, hopefully you can view the comments from the reviewer as comments to have a discussion around, not just marching orders to blindly follow. For each comment, see if you understand the issue or concern the reviewer had. If it's clear that their suggestion or thought will improve the code, great, then do that and let them know. If you don't agree with their comment or don't understand their reasons, respond and let them know. Explain that you don't understand how X is more efficient than Y in this location, or that you believe Y is better here for reason C. Continue this discussion so that the two of you can teach each other about the different options and determine together the best approach in this spot. This can result in both of you learning more not just about the code in the review, but related systems and requirements. If the reviewer didn't understand something in the code you wrote, instead of just telling them the code review comments, could you adjust the code so that it's clear for them and future readers? If they had a question today, it's very likely that someone else will have the same question in the future. View their comment as a signal that the code could be improved. As you respond to the comments and challenges, you'll both learn more and improve the code. I think if you keep these different areas in mind, you'll be able to have much more valuable code reviews in the future. Thanks for sticking with me today as I talked about my thoughts on how to get value out of code reviews. I'll follow this up by talking about what a code review shouldn't be for later. If you have any comments, code you'd like me to review, or ideas you'd like me to talk about, please leave a comment below or reach me at chris@seniorcodereviewbuddy.com. Thanks, and have a great day.